Good afternoon and good morning around the world. My name is Michael Gendre. I'm the host and producer of Dare to Know with Michael Gendre. And this is our first broadcast. And I'm very privileged to have a wonderful lady with us, Seyla Nhean. Is that how you pronounce your name, Seyla?
Yes, that's correct.
Very
That's
good.
perfect.
And so I am very interested in knowing a little bit about yourself because you have a very, well, for me at least, a very unique background, having arrived in this country from Cambodia. Is that correct?
Yes.
How old were you when you arrived in America?
I believe I was about 5 going on 6 years old. I arrived in the winter of 1986.
Okay. And you were 6. Did you know how to speak English then?
I did not.
Okay, so you went very quickly to a public school?
Yes, my sponsor in Quincy. I remember the Eastern Nazarene Church in Quincy sponsored my whole family here.
Okay.
And yes, they set us up in school, and my dad started learning English and whatnot. And even before I came, I can still remember that I took classes. I learned my ABCs in the refugee camps before I even arrived.
How long were you in a refugee camp before you arrived?
I was born in 1980, so about a good 5
You lived
years
for
or so.
5 years in a refugee camp?
Yes, my whole family did.
Okay. And your parents ended up with jobs here? They found jobs quickly or they had jobs lined up?
My sponsor did line up some things, and then we joined a Cambodian community, leaving Quincy and going to Revere.
So you moved from Quincy to Revere?
To Revere, and then we settled in Lynn, where there was the first, I believe, Cambodian temple.
Oh, really? Yes. So you're a North Shore, I mean, from the South Shore to North Shore, you're kind of a North Shore person now.
Yes.
You've been a North Shore person for
a long time. No matter where I traveled, I always come back home to the North Shore.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I met you for the first time because of our common friend, John Paul Moran. How did you meet John Paul?
I met him at a Reagan dinner, I think in Westford, that the Republican committee there put on. And we found the same table, and we just kind of, the friendship kind of grew from there. He was a really nice person and spoke very well and just very humble.
Yes, very humble and very impressive background, I would say.
Definitely an impressive background.
Yeah. Well, then I saw you at CPAC for a little bit too, and we had a wonderful time.
We had a blast.
We had a blast.
CPAC was awesome. Life-changing.
Yeah, really, really incredible. So I just want to talk about, because I have 3 topics I want to talk to you about. Is that okay to start with one?
Yes.
So, I talked about, you told me about the notion of having an American dream for a Cambodian family. What was it like imagining this dream when you were a very young person who was living in a refugee camp in where about Vietnam or
I believe it was in the border of Thailand and Cambodia.
Thailand and Cambodia. Okay. So what was it like? What is it like? What is it like for as far as you can describe it to have an American dream when you're growing up outside of the U.S.?
Back in the refugee camp, I can remember how it was like to live in poverty, to live with nothing and just basic necessities, and having to live day by day and to go get food and to wait in line and to get there late and not have anything but bowls. And feeding a family of 4 or 5, because my parents also had godbrothers that he had to take care of.
Was your family very much affected by the communist regime in Cambodia?
Very much affected. My dad was one of the only ones out of his whole family to make it to the U.S. And my mom's the only one from her family, from her village, to make it to the U.S. So when we came here, it was just literally my parents, my dad's 2 godbrothers, and I think my mom also had my younger two brothers, and then my sister, who's the fourth child, was born here in the USA.
How many, I mean, if you can do the counting, how many uncles and aunts were killed, would you say, by the communists in Cambodia?
I don't know of any immediate aunts and uncle that was killed. I believe they all survived.
Okay.
But like my great-grandfather's side or my great-uncle's side, they all perished. So anybody that had a title that was a little bit educated were killed off. They were a threat.
Yes, that was the Cultural Revolution, the anti-cultural revolution, essentially.
Yes,
that's what
they
it was.
made everybody write their own biography. And if in that biography they find out that you are somewhat educated, you're a student or whatnot, you were a target.
So they would call it, in fact, in China, I'm pretty sure it'd be the same thing in Cambodia, the Cultural Revolution, which essentially was aiming at destroying the then culture
Yes.
of Cambodia or China, right?
Disassembling the family unit, breaking them apart, and just
horrific things.
horrific atrocities. It's
Right.
unbelievable how evil people can be and think that's okay.
Yes. So now you're 5. You've been thinking about, I mean, you're still a very, very young child. You arrive in this country. What is it that struck you as quite novel, quite unexpected? I mean, you expected a few things, a few good things, but what is it that surprised you the most?
A big house, because I lived in a hut. So to come to this beautiful big single-family home, but it was like 3 floors, and having a fridge and just foreign objects everywhere, and having toys. I had my first doll, I believe, given to me. So I still have pictures.
You never had a doll before age 5? 6?
I don't believe so, no.
Wow.
I mean, back in the refugee camp, I can remember playing was going out to the fields and like finding crickets and grasshoppers and just entertaining ourselves.
Wow.
And just walking the fields and finding berries and whatnot, and that's a day in the life of a little child in a camp.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. Online, there are amazing videos of Cambodians today that do fishing in these swamp areas. It's quite fascinating. I mean, I can see that people have...
They're very creative.
They're very creative, very creative, especially for fishing. And
they pass on those traditions and knowledge from one generation to another.
Yes, fantastic. Okay, now, how long did it take you to realize this dream? So you were 5. When would you say you started really thinking and feeling like an American?
Probably the past 5 or 6 years or so, when I finally were able to purchase my own single-family home. I mean, I had a multi-family home earlier, but not until I got a single-family home and had this American dream icon, like the White House with the white picket fence, which I actually designed and built myself with my dad's help. And I'm like, whoa, this is actually the American dream with the green grass. And I'm like, I was a little blown away. I'm like, so how do I take it another step further and really live this American dream? So I decided to get naturalized and become a Cambodian American.
Fantastic. So you were 35 or so when this happened, or a little bit of...
Well, I'm getting close to 40. So I got naturalized in the summer of 2018. Over 35, what, 37, 38,
okay,
something
that's
like
amazing.
that. Yeah.
So from the age of
Pretty
5,
recent.
from the age of 5 until the age of 37, you were growing to be, you were in the process of becoming an American, but you actually became one at the age of 37, correct?
Yes.
That's
quite older.
I'm surprised by that, but you're so well adjusted and so together. It's fantastic to hear. Now we did talk, or you gave me the idea that it took a sort of mental effort and decision basically to switch allegiances to the United States of America, as opposed to Cambodia still being at the time the country that you thought was your home country.
Yes, but Cambodia is my motherland. I was very attached to it. I was born pretty close to there, in the refugee camp on the border of Thailand and Cambodia. My dad and my parents brought me up very old school and very grounded in our culture and our beliefs and our religion. Because I was literally brought up, right in front of the Cambodian temple in Lynn.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
I was very attached to my culture and my community. So I learned a lot from that. And throughout the years, it was just really hard to think about doing the allegiance. And my husband was on me every year about getting the passport and becoming a citizen.
Your husband is also Cambodian American?
My husband is Cambodian American. He got naturalized through his parents, because his parents decided to become U.S. citizens.
I see. When you mentioned Quincy, you, I think in passing, mentioned the Catholic Church across from you?
Yes, the Eastern Nazarene Church is
Okay.
the church that sponsored my whole family.
Were they influential and helpful to you and your family?
Yes, they were very helpful. As the years passed by, we grew distant because everybody's lives are busy and it changes.
Right.
Our main sponsor had moved to Romania, so we kind of lost contact. But lately, just last week, we reconnected through Facebook. So amazing, social media.
Yes.
So we're starting conversation, reconnecting, and it's wonderful.
Yes.
To think. I mean, Facebook is pretty amazing.
Yes.
After a year, like it's going on 20 plus years.
Wow. Yes.
And she's in Scotland, so looking forward to just FaceTiming her soon.
She's an American living in Scotland, or she became a Scot?
I'm not sure what
Okay.
her status is, because when we grew distance, I was probably 7 or so, and we just connected.
Yeah, very good. So tell us a little bit about your, the education you got in the school system here, and the college experience you have, if you have any.
I grew up in the public school system in Lynn, probably one of the worst at its time, because there was gang wars going on, and it was rough, but I made it through.
Yes.
And when I had kids, my oldest son went to public school in Lynn for a little bit, and I knew that I couldn't allow him to go through it the way I did, even though it cleaned up a little bit. But I think the public school system needs a different type of structure, and it needs to change a little bit to give kids a better opportunity in this world that's constantly changing.
Did you notice the curriculum in the schools not being adequate? Like, for example, math?
The curriculum, not so much, but the monkey see, monkey do, and just behavior issues and whatnot. Not every kid behaves the same, and there were more kids that was destructive in class than there are the good ones that want to actually go and learn and excel.
I see. No, I agree. When you say monkey see, monkey do, you mean that they're taught to do well on a test, and basically they're not taught real content, but just to pass a test? Is that pretty much what you're saying?
No, pretty much just behavior.
Oh, behavior.
Learning how to socialize with other kids, or being respectful to adults and your teacher and whatnot. The level of respect, I don't believe, is the same as when I was going to school. So I couldn't allow my son to think that that's normal behavior that is accepted in the real world, which is not.
What do you think the cause of this is? I mean, it seems to me it could be that there is a different mix of students that makes it difficult for them to have a homogeneous form of respect. And it could be the teachers also, or the structure itself does not elicit this type of respect from the kids to the teachers. How do you explain this?
I think the school system focused too much on teaching rather than teaching like ethics and moral behavior. I think they should incorporate that
yes.
into the system as well, learning manners. Like,
right. Well,
they expect it to be taught at home, but if at home the parents have to work like 8 hours a day
or more,
or more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow, that is very interesting. So you decided to be a mom, and you became a mom, and you have 3 children, right?
I do have 3 children. I have a 15-year-old, an 11, and a 3-year-old who's turning 4 soon at the end of this month.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Well, the thing that struck me the most when you told me about your family was the fact that because your parents are living with you or near you, with you, right?
Yes.
So now you have sort of strong family presence, which helps you greatly to have a life in addition to being a mom. And
yes,
correct?
Definitely. They definitely help out, because without them, I would have to look at daycare,
right.
and I would have to learn how to trust strangers with my kids, and
right.
I'm not able to do that because I was brought up to just be with family and to be raised that way.
Are you seeing a difference in terms of how grounded your kids are? More grounded than other kids, maybe? Or I don't know. Because if your children have the presence of their parents plus the presence of their grandparents, it would give them sort of better sense of how the world works. Is that true?
To a certain extent. When I was growing up, my parents, we went to visit Cambodia for like 5 or 6 months, so I really got to learn my culture. Okay. And I also was brought up right in front of the temple, and my kids don't have that now, so that's a little distant. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now that I'm a full-time, no longer a full-time mom, I work full-time now, and my husband works full-time. Right. My parents are at home, but the language barrier makes it a little bit difficult. So they are going to have a little bit of a struggle trying to figure out being an Cambodian American as well. They're going to have their own struggles. But I believe that they can learn the language when they get older, and I have to now recalibrate how I am going to raise my kids and make time to have talks with them and whatnot as they are getting older. Right. Every day.
But they go to a school that speaks where they speak English all the time, right? Obviously. Right.
And then I speak English all the time. Yeah. And the only time I don't speak English and I speak Cambodian is with my parents. Right.
Well, that is fascinating. Just tell me, because I think we're probably running to the end of this half-hour little interview. Very good. So now I'd like to ask you a question on the various types of immigrants and their lives on the North Shore in the Boston area. So, you have lived in Lynn, now you live in Amesbury, but you also have a connection with Lawrence, or at least you know people in Lawrence, right?
Lawrence, Lowell.
And Lowell. Mm-hmm. So, these are 3 major areas with a lot of immigrants. Yes. Can you tell us what you think of their difficulties and their accomplishments? What do you think they feel they have accomplished in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, one generation? What do you think is happening for these people who immigrated from foreign lands?
From my perspective and from what I've seen is that the communities that I grew up in depended a lot on government assistance.
Oh, really?
So, yes. And because of that, it takes a while for people to understand that when you take from the government, you should also give back and consider becoming a citizen and whatnot, and learn your role as civic engagement. And I don't think there's enough information or enough education out there to teach people and to promote that and to understand
and
it.
You think that there is a sort of pent-up desire to to become more active so that those people would become more engaged? I mean, you're saying they need to do that because if they do it or when they do it, they feel a lot better by themselves?
I'm not sure how to answer that. Because I can only speak from my experience.
Yeah. But do you think that they are still dependent on the government and therefore they cannot think as much as they would otherwise? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're still in a state of minority, so to speak.
In a sense, in a state of minorities, but as in Lynn...
Well, what I mean is age minority. When you're a minor as opposed to an adult, grown-up adult. Mm-hmm. That's the way in which I use the word minority here. You're a minor as opposed to an adult. So they remain in the state of being a minor person because they've always so far been dependent on handouts and programs from the government. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so, it makes sense. I just had not thought of it that way, but it makes sense. And so do you think the civic engagement is not happening because the schools are not doing it enough, the churches are not doing it enough?
Yes, I think there needs to be more dialogue. Even, for instance, like presently, I have friends that probably haven't ever voted because they're scared of the word politics.
Really?
And they don't think that it makes a difference to go voice out that.
So they don't understand the issues, political issues.
No, they don't. They don't understand. They let other people make the decisions for them, and they don't feel like it would impact anything because they're just one person.
Wow. And can you tell me of issues that could have impacted them? That if they took a more active role in discussing things? I mean, I don't know, maybe schooling would be one?
Yes, schooling and the taxes we pay, the community improvements and the programs that they can benefit from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's left for other people to do.
Yeah, that's left for other people to do and to make that choice for them. And then when it comes down to it, it might not work in their favor, and then they wonder why.
And so they wonder why, and they're unhappy, and they still stay back in this state of minority that I was just explaining as an age minority type of thing, right? So how do you think it should be fixed? I mean, first of all, you have to talk to these people, right? I mean, somebody has to, someone who has accomplished something, coming out of the Cambodian community, the Hispanic community, the different types of Hispanic communities, the Brazilian communities, I don't know, some mentors have to emerge and sort of address them or help out.
It's just to get out, meet people and listen to different perspectives, find out who you really align with. Are you going to be just an independent, or do you have conservative values and you align more with the Republican side, or are you more pro-choice and you align with the Democrat side? Some people don't have the basic knowledge of that, and I believe that it should be taught more, and more groups and whatnot need to be developed to
to explain and to understand
and create dialogue and for instance, what John Paul doing is wonderful. Go USA. So
that strikes a chord with a lot of immigrants, right?
Yes.
Because they came here to be in the U.S.
And young immigrants as well.
Yes, the younger ones too. Yes. So getting back to John Paul a little bit, what do you think is the core message that he resonates with for you?
For me, one of the things that resonates most is being a conservative Republican and knowing that life starts at conception.
Mm-hmm. So the pro-life stance.
The pro-life stance really
is very important. Yeah.
hits home for me.
Yeah. Is it because, I mean, obviously your own values, but do you think that, I mean, I'm asking for the viewers, the fact that you saw some horrific things, or you heard of some horrific things going on in communist China for forced either abortions or...
Forced abortions and favoritism, female.
So the next question I have, in keeping with your pro-life values, I'm curious as to what it is in your background where you were aware of the way in which the communists have typically dealt with abortions. Some of them forced, some of them encouraged. What type of knowledge do you have of this? I mean, what kind of personal connection do you have with that in Cambodia or in China?
Well, in my culture, they still kind of value, even for my own personal experience, they value baby boys more than baby girls.
Okay, right.
When I was born, I'm the oldest and I'm a girl, and it's disappointing to the parents or whatnot to have a daughter first, because they want that strong boy. And in communist China, it's the same, because the boy is looked at as the creator.
Well, he will bring, he's insurance for retirement of the mother, basically, isn't he?
Yes.
That's what it is.
Be able to go out to work and bring money back home and feed the family.
Yeah, I mean, the daughter is going to marry outside typically, and the boy will be
marry outside and go become the servant too.
Right, and become the servant,
the guy's whole family.
Right. So the idea of a patriarchy that supposedly characterizes the American society is really not that true, correct? It's much more the other cultures that are more patriarchal.
Yes. You
see what I'm saying?
And also with my stance on pro-life, it's because I'm a Buddhist that we kind of have the similar views as conservatives, because definitely life starts at conception. I don't see it any other way. Do you have to wait for a heartbeat? Because that's the starting point to the heartbeat.
Yes. Well, that is very interesting. What about the work ethic that you have had in your culture or in your family, and then in the culture, in the Cambodian culture? How is that completely connected to the American work ethos? The fact that America is about just working, getting things done. Is that compatible with your values?
Yes, we're very hard workers. My dad took several jobs just to support us and to support everybody back at home, because back at home there's not the freedom that we have here. There's not the same opportunities that you have here in the U.S. I mean, your freedom of speech is limited. Basic human rights is almost non-existent. So to be here and to live the American dream and to have the ability to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is pretty darn amazing. Where else do you really have it in the world? It still exists here in the U.S. and we should keep it in existence.
Yes. Okay, we're going to wrap it up, but I also had you watch the video that I did last year of Caitlin.
Yes, Caitlin, yes.
What did you think of her story?
Her story is amazing. I got to know Caitlin a little bit, and it's the struggles of being female outside of the U.S. Some people don't understand. They
have no idea how hard it is and how much better.
How undervalued women are seen.
Outside of the U.S.
Outside of the U.S. At birth.
From the moment of birth. And how many more opportunities women have here, right?
Yes, we definitely have more amazing opportunities. I mean, it's not without its struggles, but at least you have the ability to struggle and to fight for it.
That's right. Well, this is fascinating. Maybe we could do an interview with your husband if he's interested in doing that. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you around on the trail with John Paul and other people in Lynn or in.
I'm looking forward to it.
In different areas, Amesbury, where you are, and near Lowell, because his district goes very close to Lowell.
Yes, up to Billerica.
Billerica,
pretty
that's where
darn
he
close.
lives. Yes.
And thank you so much, Michael,
Well,
for having me.
you're very welcome.
I love it. Dare to know, right?
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.